Who's that? Commander Claw. Who's bad? Commander Claw. Welcome back to another episode of Breaking Brews. Players. I am Commander Claw, and I'm here to bring you a monored commander that I feel like is actually pretty good by itself. It also teaches several phases of the game, and I feel like it's a really good mid-level, starter to mid-level commander for beginners. I'm sorry, starter to mid-level type of commander. I don't know what power level that is. It's probably not going to be really high. But I'm kind of just referencing beginner players because the MTG Foundation set is kind of tailored towards you guys. But also, I think some savvy players can make this kind of beastie in a way. So, let's get right into this commander, Anep Vizier of Hazoret. Hazoret is actually, I'll showcase that later on. Let me show you the abilities on this Jackal warrior. All right, to cast this guy is 2 in a red on a 4/2 body, legendary Jackal warrior. It has trample. You may exert Anep Vizier of Hazoret as it attacks. When you do, exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards, and the exerted creature won't untap during your next untap step. So, what are we looking to do here? We're looking to go to our combat phase, and what is good after our combat phase is this attack triggers allows us to impulse draw and see 2 additional cards that we can play on our post-combat main phase or our second main phase. That's good because this allows us to sequence. I think this card is actually really good in other colors, also that include red, because additional abilities and effects become even nastier when you start sequencing plays. I do like to elaborate momentarily just to let players know, doing effects at each phase is an amazing feeling, from upkeep, main phase, combat, post-combat main phase, end step. That is a monster turn. And once you get to that point, your opponents don't want you to take a turn. You become a menace. Not the key word, but a menace. So let's get into a little history real quick, then 5 cards for you. So, Hazoret, which is a legendary god from the Amonkhet set, which is like the Egyptian set for Magic the Gathering. That's what Anep Vizier of Hazoret is named after. Just to showcase Hazoret the Fervent, is a 4 CMC 5/4 god, indestructible haste. Hazoret the Fervent can't attack or block unless you have 1 or fewer cards in your hand. So don't think that is not common. If you're running mono red, you will not have cards in your hand because you are playing as many spells as possible. The only issue running with mono red is your card draw. And you don't get to see cards often. Well, you get to see cards, but you have to play them. Tap 3, discard a card. Hazoret deals 2 damage to each opponent. So this is like a built-in get rid of your built-in discard for you to do 2 damage to each opponent. This is really good in other decks that want to discard cards as you deal damage at the same time. But back to Anep, Vizier of Hazoret. Just wanted to show you the history of this card. Just to let you know that a lot of cards are referencing other cards in their flavor text or in their names. So as you begin this journey of Magic, there's so much history to the game. Uh, just look up the flavor text. Look up the name of the card. There's another card that references it. All right, so let's get right into those 5 cards. Okay, so we got Fear of Missing Out for 2 mana as a 2/3 enchantment creature, Nightmare. Enchantment creature is literally 2 card types. It is an enchantment and a creature. All right, it says when Fear of Missing Out enters, discard a card, then draw a card. So that's looting right there. It has the Delirium ability. Whenever Fear of Missing Out attacks for the first time each turn, if there are 4 more card types, artifact creature, enchantment creature, that's 3 creature types in your graveyard. If it has 4 more card types among cards in your graveyard, untap target creature. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. This is actually pretty easy to achieve. Like I just mentioned, Artifact creature, that is an artifact and a creature. That's 2 types. Enchantment creature, that is also 2 types. So you have 3 types right there. Then if you have a land in your graveyard, that is what 4 types right there. And if you have a planeswalker, that's 5 types right there. Easy to achieve. This gives you an additional combat phase. That's something you would want to do with a Anep, right? So not only do you see 2 cards from the first combat phase, you get additional 2 on your second combat phase. So in turn, on your second main phase, you have 4 cards that you can play. Pretty good. Okay, Claws of Valakut. I think this is a mono staple for mono red commanders. And it's not talked about enough. It's literally Branchwood Armor, but in red. Branchwood Armor gives +1/+1 for each forest you control. This is Claws of Valakut. For 3 mana, it's an enchantment creature, aura. Enchanted creature +1/+0 for each mountain you control and has first strike. Right? So if you have 6 mountains, your creature gets +6/+0 and it has first strike. Anybody that blocks it, it should be die. It should die. It should die. Yeah. So essentially, all you would need to really do is add trample on your creature, first strike and trample, and a power boost. Your mono red creature is going to wreak havoc. It will be a threat. Players will need to remove it. Nobody wants to take +5 damage. You know what I mean? Next up, we got Unstable Amulet. For 2 mana, it's an artifact. It says when Unstable Amulet enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy counters. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, Unstable Amulet deals 1 damage to each opponent. This card will go in a lot of decks, and it's brand new. This card will be in a lot of decks. All right, tap it. Pay 2 energy counters. Exile the top card of your library. You may play it until you exile another card with Unstable Amulets. Okay, let's unpack this here. The reason why this card is good because you will be casting cards outside of your hand all the time. So that means if you cast cards from your graveyard or if you cast cards from exile, you'll be dealing 1 damage to each opponent. Okay? It also comes in giving you 2 energy encounters, allowing you to do its final ability. Exile the top card of your library. That's Impulse Draw. And you may play until you exile another card with Unstable Amulet. If you are not running energy counters, you only do this 1 time. Just saying. Unless you blink this artifact, which you can do. Interesting. So being able to see an additional card and save it for the right time, this is really good for mono red. It could be like a burn spell that you might need later on. It could be a land that you might. Can I play lands with this? Whenever you cast this from. Yeah. You'll be able to play a land later on. But it's able to see a card, save a card, and play it for later. Okay, so I've been mentioning this Anep is really good in other commanders with other commanders, right? This is one of my favorite commanders. It is Anim Pakal, Thousandth Moon. It is low end, low CMC Boros commander that is all about the attack phase and creatures. When you play with this commander, you are going aggro. That means you're playing fast. You are trying to take over the board state quickly. I built this deck. I love this deck. So let me read this commander, right? Animpakal Thousand Moon, 1 red and a white, 1/2 body human soldier, legendary creature. Whenever you attack with 1 or more non-gnome creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on Animpakal. Then create X 1/1 colors gnome artifact creature tokens that are tapped and attacking, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on Animpakal. So what happens here is you don't even have to attack with Animpakal. You attack with any other creature, and you are trying to highlight your attack phase. And you want creatures with attack triggers, so when they attack, you get payoff. So Anep, Vizier of Hazoret, is a perfect. So not only you go to attack phase, you trigger a Pakal, you get a gnome creature, you get to see 2 additional cards that you can cast in your post-combat main phase. And these could be anthems to boost up your gnomes. They could be another like creature, token doubler. The reason why Anep I feel like is great for beginners, it just teaches you additional phases. main phase, combat phase, second main phase, instep. Like obviously I forgot untap, upkeep, but that's the very beginning. So like a commander like this, low end, and you trying to be aggro, you're trying to layer all your effects, make your turn, maximize your turn with spells, 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 effects, effects, effects. So when your opponents take their turn, they're possibly behind if they're only playing one spell per turn or just playing one board wipe or not trying to advance their board state. Next up, we got sorry, we have Isshin, Two Heavens as One. It is a Mardu commander. Mardu is one of my favorite color schemes, okay? It is a human samurai legendary creature on a 3/4 body. If a creature attacking causes a trigger ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So, long story short, if you have Anep with this guy, you're able to see 4 cards instead of 2 because the exerting ability makes you triggers an additional time. So the reason why that is good with Isshin because you have 2 additional color schemes that can take advantage of seeing 4 additional cards. I mean, the list goes on. If you ever go to EDH Rec and look at all the cards that go with Isshin, like Fervent Charge gives, +2/+2. Going to like the list just goes on. I can't even explain. I really need to do a deck tech. If you want me to do a deck tech on Isshin, Two Heavens as One, or 5 best pickups, write 5 best pickups or deck tech on Isshin. I would definitely love to do it. One of my favorite commanders. I think a lot of players struggle building his mana base and actually knowing how to play Mardu are the trickiest way, are the biggest problems for new players with this guy. Okay, so the reason why I'm highlighting Abbot of Carol Keep for 2 mana is a 2/1 human monk. It has prowess. We're not really concerned with that here. Um, prowess says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Cool. So it gets stronger and you can attack with it. You're not looking to attack with this guy. But what it says is when it enters the battlefield, exile the top card of your library until end of turn. You may play that card this turn. So first off, this card is really good for storm counts. Ooh, I didn't even think about that until now. Yeah. So not only it adds to your storm count, you get to see an additional card that you get to play that turn. And if it's a cantrip, you get to play a low CMC spell, draw a card. Disgusting. The reason why it's good with a Anep, because if you're in mono red, you're trying to see more cards. You're trying to see more cards. You want to see more cards to cast and burn players or put artifact equipments onto the battlefield and make him bigger. If you're playing mono red with this guy. I think it's a good commander just to see all the different phases and see more cards. Mostly mono red commanders, you don't get to see a lot of cards. You only get to play the cards in your hand, and when you burn out, that's it. This commander says, hey, go to your attack phase. You get to see more cards. You get to use them this turn. Hopefully you have mana available to use them. So, summary. After doing this video just live, I really feel like Anep is really good for the new Marvel Commander Storm Force of Nature because not only you go to your attack phase and ability stack, you go to your attack phase and you would like see 2 more cards if you exert Anep, and that gives you 2 more cards that you can possibly play to add to the storm count for Storm Force of Nature. So in general, Anep Vizier of Hazoret is a really good commander that is better in your 99. I wouldn't recommend him as a mono red. For beginner players, yeah, it's cool to see post-combat phases, attack phases, combat phase and stuff like that. But once you get to, mid-level, you want to add this guy in your 99, you can just see more cards. Disgusting. Highly recommend this commander.